overview evidenced the health impact and the risk and concerns. So we didn't have any oil and gas until the 1960s, when the North Sea deposits were found, and the 1964 there was a Continental Shelf Act passed, and then applications were made, and by late 60s we had the sort of nascent oil and gas industry starting. Next one, thank you. Right, and again. 1976, we got an oil platform which also took on gas, and then in 1988, July the 6th, there was a big explosion and 167 people died. Next one, please. On the left, the legacy was the Cullen inquiry was set up. They were found guilty of having inadequate maintenance and safety procedures, but no criminal prosecutions were made. And there were 106 recommendations, including that operators were required to produce a safety case, and they moved the responsibility for enforcing safety from the Department of the Environment, as it was then, DOE, to the Health and Safety Executive. That was the beginning of our oil and gas industry, and it makes me wonder on that last question about gold-plated regulation. There has still been no charges brought against the operator who was found to have been that. Lovely, thank you. So what happens, this will bring up, if you click the thing again, it will bring up the issues about onshore oil and gas. There we go. Just for ease of thinking about it, there's the exploration phase, an evaluation phase like the testing of what they found, exploitation, that is going into commercial production, the end of the process, and restoration. And as Sue mentioned, currently, well integrity, that is sealing the well with cement. So you have a sort of system of cement, the drill going down, surrounded by cement, does leak. And something like 7 to 8% leak within the first 6 months, 50% leak within the first 15 years, and all of them leak at the end. And at the minute, our Environment Agency that enforces and meant to implement such safety hasn't got the resources to monitor wells at the end of their life. So we've got a lot of wells already around the country with no idea where their materials are going. Lovely, next. This is too detailed. What I was wanting to point attention to in the difference between conventional and unconventional, none of them mention people. If you think of the offshore oil industry, where we've come into contact is the workforce going out to the oil industry, or possible helicopter accidents. But of course, onshore oil is done very near to people, to villages, to housing, and the difficulties, the government has issued 2 reports pointing out, this is the government themselves, pointing out that the worst effects will be felt by the local community. So the local community has every right to have a say in what's going on. Next, thank you. So, it was mentioned, there's only one well actually been fracked in the old definition, that is high volume, hydraulic fracturing, known as fracking. That means putting a lot of water down, mixed with chemicals and with sand. The sand acts as a little sort of irritant that props open the cracks that are made by the pressure. So you bung a lot of pressure with the water down, force the, a bit like shale, you know, when you cut granite or along shale levels, forces the cracks open and then holds them open. But you can imagine that doesn't go on for ages. You know when you're sucking out the end of that milkshake, you know, there's as much as you can get, not quite at the end. So they have to put in another well next door to spread out and get the next bit, and another well next door. So what you hear first is, oh, we're going to do one well. Well, in Australia they say they told us one well, and then they draw back, and there's 100 of them, if not more. Because you can't get at, sideways, if you imagine, all that oil and gas that's trapped in the shell without running out. You can go about a mile or two and then you can't bring any more up. Lovely, thank you. What happened at Pre-Saul actually was the pressures were so great, because they did it near a fault, and I'll come back to faults, that it overlies the well. They're the pressures. And even now we don't know whether the liquids and chemicals that went down the well are still getting out into the country. So I just need to issue a health warning that the situation isn't the same. You can't just take the evidence that's cropping up in the countries, particularly America and Australia, where these developments are underway, without just being careful how you do it, because it may not be exactly the same as one issue. In America, they have quite straightforward geology. You put a well down, easy. They also pay the owners of the land the money. In Britain, and particularly in the Weald, very faulted, very folded, faulted, very different. Thank you. So we'll look at what the health impacts are, and this is coming from, as I say, Australia and America. Thank you. Now, this is my health warning. It's a relatively new technology. The modern method of fracking was only invented in 1998 by Nick Steinsberger in America, where he added in this water, which made it more effective from a point of view of obtaining the oil and gas. So we've got an information deficit. We don't know all there is going on. There are many myths and assertions around, mostly as I've heard from government ministers, but therefore you need to be careful about where you find your evidence and the source. It takes time to assess impacts, doesn't it? When the thalidomide was developed in the drug, it hadn't been tested long enough. The impact started showing up, but it still took a long time to assess what the real impacts were and to find out that it was so devastating. And the differences between countries. The legal system's different, the methods are different, the geology's. Right, on we go. The first report, now what I'd like you to do is pay attention to the dates. Okay? So the first report we got from our government body that is concerned with public health was June 2014. It had actually drawn on its evidence by about 2012, and actually that was very limited. There was about 250 articles available at the time. But basically they said, current available evidence indicates it would be okay if operations are run properly. No need to worry. I don't know about you, no cause for alarm. Okay, next one. Thank you. So what did they find in Australia and America? They found very similar symptoms among those living around the drills. Nosebleeds, sore eyes, right through to breathing problems and headaches. And particularly affected are those vulnerable groups, old, young, and the people who are already not well. Thank you. So the first concerns pop up because local residents notice. Okay? And they started health studies in Pennsylvania where they've drilled 10,000 wells since 2005. Remember, Nick Steinsberger had invented the method in 1998. Okay? And they found, assessing the evidence, three particular issues: birth outcomes, asthma, and symptoms. Thank you, Julie. Johns Hopkins University has found that pregnant women living near heavy fracking sites in Pennsylvania have a 40% higher risk of giving birth to a baby early, and there is some evidence to indicate that they are smaller weights. It's not conclusive, but there's some evidence pointing that way. Thank you. And in relation to asthma, then you can measure numbers of people visiting hospital, department, emergency visits, and medication required, and that's gone up, as you can see. Next. And these symptoms are universal: nasal, sinus, migraine, fatigue. Lovely, thanks. Now in America, litigation is quite central to the way they do things. Surely then they haven't proved that this hurts or it does harm. But no, there was a, notice the date, 2014, April, a family who won $3 million for the harm that had been done. Next one, please. And the Parr family became ill in 2009. They live 50 miles northwest of Dove, same sort of symptoms. And she, Mrs. Parr, said, my central nervous system was messed up. I couldn't hear and my vision was messed up. My entire body would shake. I was vomiting white foam in the mornings. Next one. And what surprised them was the wells weren't on their property and they had no idea what was going on around them was actually affecting them. Okay. And they had 22 natural gas wells within 2-mile radius, 3 wells very close to their home, and the doctor found 20 chemicals in her body and said you must move immediately. Next one, thank you. And 2 families have been awarded just this year, March this year, 4.2 million after finding that the oil and gas company had been negligent with their water supply. Next. So, an Australian inquiry, they went about it quite sensibly. I felt they said, okay, let's see what the evidence says. Air pollution, that can damage respiratory. These are their recommendations and conclusions. Respiratory health, climate change, from the methane, that's natural gas releases. Drinking water pollution, because the methane and chemicals can go along those cracks that are now existing underground. Soil pollution, earthquakes which are induced during this fracturing, and that indeed happened in Blackpool. There were seismic events, they're called. But community impacts, increased number of vehicles, road damage, noise, smell, and continuous light while the drill is on. Well failure, this is the term that Sue used, integrity of wells. In order to drill down through the earth and then surround it by cement, the liquids of gas which are pumped down are 2 to 3 times more likely to leak in these wells that turn underground. And wells drilled horizontally as well as vertically have a failure rate 4 times higher. So if you're drilling down and then turning sideways, it's more likely you will be contaminated. We mentioned vehicles. We saw the little video clip of an HGV trying to get it along narrow Sussex lanes. They, of course, diesel, exhaust, the chemicals, etc., as well as accidents. And monitoring, it's very important if, I'm not saying when, any proposal is followed through at all, that you know what the current situation is. How can you measure the difference? If you don't know what your current health status is, you can't link it to anything that's gone on lately. So you need to know the health, that's epidemiology, and the little sideways bars are going from the skin as the highest issue down to ecological. So all those health effects, this is a paper by Colborne, are related, need monitoring. Lovely, thank you. Right, and Robert Jackson, in the Environmental Science and Technology, did a study of water use. So there are 4 key issues. The amount you need. The average volume to frack one well was 2.4 million gallons. Remember, this is clean water. You're sending clean water down and making it filthy and unable to use. And we know from South Down, from the chalk, what a very valuable commodity that is. Surface water, that's clearly the things on the surface like streams, etc. I'll come on to this, flow back water and recovered water. So water use is very important. We're messing up a resource that's key to us living. This is slightly tricky to explain. Stuart Hazelden is a geologist in Edinburgh. Formation water, that exists under the ground naturally anyway. It's a bit briny, it's relic seawater, and that forms our groundwater. Fracturing fluids, so there's sand, water and chemicals, is put down. That's another form of fluid. Produced water comes from conventional oil and gas, and is mostly this formation water coming back up through the drill. Flowback fluids are more serious. They're from the shale gas operations, and they mix the fracking fluids and formation water. And between 50 and 70% come back up, 30 and 70% come back up, which leaves, on the mass, 70 to 30% still underground. We don't know where that goes. So we've messed up underneath, water underneath as well as on top. Thank you. So what goes down? Quadrilla, the company at Pre-Sol, is committed to use these for lubrication, tracing fracturing fluid, acid, and a biocide used to clean the water. What might come back? Flowback fluid is usually very saline, contaminated, contain heavy metals, the chemicals, naturally occurring radioactive material, which was down there anyway, and about 25 to 75% of it is recovered. We haven't got enough facilities for dealing with this. And in any application, you'll notice they'll say, oh, and then we'll take away the extra water. There, wonder. Thank you. One of the things they did for the application in Lancashire was to do a health impact assessment. This is in lines as we have had environmental impact assessments. And what the Director of Public Health found was the exploration sites led to fear, anxiety and stress, with some people quite depressed. That's less easy to measure as a health impact, but very real. And now, just this year, about a month ago, Anna Solja, oh I'm sorry, I'm going to mess her name up, Solluca from Bergen has produced the first report on social impact in this country, and she said the gap between citizens' rights and industry and state resources has widened even further. And I think that's reflected in how the law and planning is favouring the fracking companies, and we'll see next week they're about to announce the decision about the applications which went to planning inquiry in Lancashire. Now it's going to the Secretary. And economic, this is Lord Stern, who lives locally, so fracking's not going to benefit either the economy or the local community. He's a top economist, that's off my subject. Next. We're almost there. Right, climate change. Like I said, one of the effects of methane over 20 years is 86% at times more damaging than carbon dioxide. So we've got it going up from the earth anyway, but if we're encouraging it and providing more escape for it, it's adding to the problem. So I would suggest fossil fuels need to stay in the ground, which is indeed what the Paris Convention advised. The Paris Convention said we need to keep the temperature from going up beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade, and it's getting very, very near that. I think it's about 1.38. Thank you. So our danger is that we see each issue as different. Freak flood, heat wave, a tornado, a fire, the snow, drought, and we're just like ostriches. We either need more sand or to change our outlook. Thank you. And so, health and fracking, that was produced by Medact last year, and there's now over 700 articles, and they did an update on shale gas. These are available at the back for anyone who wants them. Next one, thank you. And these are the sources where I got my information. The Concerned Health Professionals of New York, they gathered all the evidence and produced in March 2014 and updated in April 2015. That evidence led to a ban in New York State. They won't have fracking. A joint US-UK workshop of all the scientists in UK and US identified over 140 issues needing research. I thought that might have flagged up something. And then the Medact reports are on the website, and there's also a Chems Trust workshop on their report on their website about chemicals. Thank you. And just this week, last week, the United States Public Health Association said ignoring the body of evidence to us is not a viable option anymore. Next one. And that's the summary from the UK report. The arguments against fracking on public health and ecological grounds are overwhelming. There are clear grounds for adopting the precautionary principle. Thank you. Last one. A little matte cartoon that appeared in the Telegraph. Thank you very much.